Hello everybody, welcome today. Now this video is a bit of a last-ditch effort to be able to bring awareness of current events, the stuff that we are seeing today, and everybody can see it for themselves, but it's hard to make sense of it. Everyone's just trying to live their lives and do things the way they've always done, work, provide for their families, be there for their families, be loving parents, be loving children to the parents who have raised them, to one day having their own children. You know, the cycle of life that we have. Yes, this video is a bit of a last-ditch effort to be able to use social media to bring awareness to the events that we are suffering with right now, specifically in Canada. I live in Canada, and many people who live in the West right now can relate to what we are seeing in Canada. But for Canadians, what we are experiencing is very unique. And quite frankly, the way that we are experiencing it is very unnecessary. And we all know right now the kind of times that we are living in, the current times, the pressing times that we are in right now with what has hit the world, this pandemic, and everyone has to stay safe. Everyone has to, take the proper precautions to be safe. And right now there is an antibody made against that virus right now. And it is out there, and it is in the form of these vaccinations. And for the people who want to protect themselves against this virus, then they can take this vaccination. So those are one of the things that we are dealing with right now as populations. We are dealing with right now this crisis, and we're trying to get over this speed bump, bend the curve, as our politicians have said here in Canada. The 2 week that was meant to bend that curve has now become 2 years, and we see how far it is basically going now. But as far as that is concerned, when it comes to that, you guys, everybody who's watching this video, everybody in life right now has a choice to make of how they want to protect themselves from this virus. And there is measures out there that are being taken, and every day of our lives we are completing those measures by wearing the face masks, by doing the quarantines when we are asked to, by doing the social distancing, by taking all the precautions and all the extra measures, and measures that also seem very oppressive and basically are oppressive. We take them and we try to, the best as we can, as people, as law-abiding citizens, to do the best thing. And not only that, we are trying to protect the people around us by taking these measures. So when people are doing this, they fully believe, or at least even if they don't fully believe, they are still taking all the precautions. And the people who are not taking the precautions are being enforced to take those precautions. And the people who don't want to take those precautions still do listen to those precautions, and they still do take those precautions, even though they don't want to, because they're doing the right thing. They're also following the laws that are being put in place with those measures in order, as it is said, to protect us. So that is that being put out of the way. We understand what's happening with that. What else I want to come to you with this video is to show you, and for all of you to put together what is happening today in today's times, what the current times we're in is. And one of the biggest things right now is how our kids right now are being educated at school, to the point where things are being taught to kids that basically 90% of parents in Canada and around the world, but in Canada I know that it's a big 90%, that they don't support the curriculums that are right now being taught to our kids, how our kids are being taught about society, about life, about history. We need to prevent racism. We need to prevent, obviously, hate and things that are negative in our society. But now things are being turned into hate crimes, that if you do this, you are in a category of a hateful person or a hate group. If you have certain beliefs or you have certain traditions, specifically also religious beliefs. And I'm not talking about people who are Sikh or Muslim or Jewish, but right now I'm mainly talking about people who want to be Christian, who want to have their Western version of religion, which that's what it is. It's our Western version, what is basically native to the languages that are spoken here in Canada, like French, English, and as well as the many people who have come here and helped forge, nations like this. These cultures have to be respected, and they have had, of course, their heyday where these cultures ruled and everything. But today, as we are talking about being inclusive and respecting and wanting to teach people the right way, it seems like the people who are of Christian culture and as well of a white pigmentation of skin are being racially discriminated and are being basically racially attacked. And right now, for whatever reason, our media is doing nothing but racially attacking people that are of Caucasian culture, who have white skin color, being shamed over everything, being accused for every single crime of history. People today that have made such efforts to change the culture, to improve it, are still being shamed, being now insulted, and even being physically harmed because of what we are seeing as their white skin color. It seems like there's a persecution right now. Actually, it doesn't just seem, there is a persecution right now against anything that is Western right now in Western countries. And it is very obvious. And for anybody who would say, well, why is this person saying this? This is one of the things that I'm trying to bring to light here. Why would this person be saying this? You would say, well, that person must be white. I must be a white person who is angry at what I am seeing. I don't want equality. No, I am part black. I am part Native American, and I come from a culture where predominantly we're not white, and I am not white. I'm actually a mixture of different ethnicities, where my pigmentation, when you look at me, I happen to look white. I more resemble a person from a mixed culture in South America, Latin America, a person from the Middle East who might have a different versions of blood, a person of maybe Jewish ethnicity, that where he doesn't just identify by one race alone, but it's a mixture of things. But still, there's identity there. Still, there's culture. There's their cultural identity. You guys know that I don't really have to explain this the way I'm trying to explain it right now in depth, especially in an inclusive society. So I'm just letting you know that when I'm speaking about people with white pigmentation that I happen to kind of match, I'm basically trying to say that this whole attack on what it seems like anything that's white, anything that has Christianity, anything that has just a resemblance of an old European culture, you're catching a lot of people in that crossfire. A lot of people who are not guilty of the crimes that the skin color is being blamed, and basically a new racism is being formed. And quite frankly, having people in my family who are white, and anybody in this country or any country who is in this country and is married to anybody or has anybody or their kids are half white or whatever, understands that this is racism. This is targeting. This is very intentional. And yes, right now in Canada, we are experiencing that, a nation that is not racist. But I'll tell you one thing about racism before I get in saying that it's not racism, because I've seen how it's not become racist to where it used to be racist. But let me explain the kind of racism I've seen in this country. When I first came to this country as an immigrant, my family is an immigrant that didn't speak, I especially didn't speak basically nothing. I spoke really nothing. I had to learn how to speak my native language here in Canada, while I was also learning how to speak the Canadian language, which is English and French, but mainly in the region that I grew up is English. And when I grew up equally around white people, people of Sikh culture, Fijian culture, of Chinese, Vietnamese. I don't have to name every single culture, but mainly Asian cultures, with as well Polish and other Europeans, Germans, Spaniards, Portuguese. But it was mainly people of India and China and regions from Asia, from the Eurasian continent, but more in the Far East. And wonderful cultures, wonderful people. But when I was growing up, I remember that I was racially discriminated by both ends. I would get racially discriminated by the white groups, and I'd also get severely discriminated, equally or sometimes not worse, by groups of that were Sikh or Chinese or basically of Asian descent, to be fair. But the reason why I'm saying Sikh and Chinese is because I knew who some of these ethnicities were, because they're very big. And from what I experienced in this country growing up, I've experienced the racism from all ends. Whether you were white, whether you resemble a Middle Eastern person, I've gotten it all. I've been called names, being called a Muslim. I've been called names as a Latino, being called a lot of awful names, almost names involving you don't deserve to live, like you're a rat, like you are a parasite, like you are an illegal, you are a person whose culture does not deserve. And I've seen it also in literature attacks. I've seen it. Our media at a certain point would choose, rather they wanted to insult Mexicans today or Muslims tomorrow, or people of a different ethnicity or a different kind of culture, different from the English culture. I've seen it all. And as well, yes, I've experienced from what is now majorities in my country. There's not Sikhs and people from India and Asian cultures of that sort are not minorities. They're very equal races here. They got a lot of things are in their language. So here, since what I grew up, I've noticed that the racism was within people, from households, from what parents taught their kids, from cultures that they were seeing on TV, where it wasn't popular to obviously insult white people back in the day, because like the English culture, the England and the United States, they're the world police. They police everything. Everything is basically, through them. They control everything. They're the ones against racism. So it never could really be questioned. But yet, when you look at the media itself, it still encourages racism. The way they speak about people from Latin America is very it's always in a very distasteful way. And if you actually guys look what happens with the political situation in Latin America, you will see that the West, or whatever you want to call it, the English-speaking nations, particularly the United States, would meddle with Latin America. Still does, makes their economies hard, where people were rumored saying that the CIA or whatever intelligence would come in and messing with elections and stuff like that. Other foreign parties from other countries coming in as well that were rivaling the United States, basically doing economical wars there, exploiting the resources, and with it also propaganda, saying that these people are backwards. Whenever Spain or Mexico would try to do something together, other cultures would come out saying, no, you guys can't do that. You guys can't work together like the English nations do because you guys got the past, Spaniards were bad to natives and this and that. I've seen the racism. I've seen it, the systematic racism. It still exists there. But yet today I see a lot of shaming on the cultures that would do that to us. While that racism is still in place in Latin American cultures, it's still partly in place in Middle Eastern cultures, saying that these people are terrorists, or people from Latin America are just bringing in crime and hurting people. And today we're talking about Black Lives Matter, about social justice and equality, yet these things are still happening. And then yet we're seeing even more worse racism on now people of white skin color. And what I'm trying to describe to you is, since I grown up in the country I've grown up with, I was racially attacked for looking not white by people who were not white. I would get spat on. I would get picked last in games, to the point where I had to go to special schools. I had no social skills, because when I would go outside, I would just get beat up, whether I was brown, white, or whatever it was, whatever ethnicity was before me. Because when you look at me closely, I look like I'm Arab. I look also like maybe I'm Greek. I'm Italian from a more hotter region. But then if you're white, you would see, okay, this guy doesn't have blue eyes. His nose is a bit different. His lips. The structure of his hair, his beard. His skin color is a bit different. But then when I'm presented with a person who's not white, they identify me as white. When I'm having an opinion or something, or I talk about God or something, it's like an eyebrows raised towards me. And then I look at what's being shown on the media nowadays, how they're constantly on YouTube, a place that is no longer feels safe. This is why I said in the beginning of the video that this is like a last-ditch effort to be able to bring awareness, because the other efforts is that now people, what they're doing is that they're speaking to people directly through the 6-foot distancing. What we have to do is we have to stand 6 feet apart, hold up signs and say, hey, look, you know, there's a lot of racism in this country, and it's not just the kind of racism that the media is talking about. Hey, look, guys, our voice is being taken away. Our voice is being taken away. We can't share things on YouTube. We feel like we are being racially discriminated. And at the same time, for someone who's African American, when I say African American, it could be a person who grew up in Canada, just in North America, from that culture, you know, in an English-speaking region here in America, growing up here, also feeling like, hey, there's racism, white people are after me, like this system's not good. And in a place like Canada, where that just simply does not exist, and if it did at a certain point, it was dumb immaturity. And from what I gather, is our legislations, our laws worked against that from the very beginning. We were supposedly a model country against that. But nowadays, I'm also seeing what's happening with the First Nations, and how the First Nations cultures here in Canada and as well in the United States, but mainly in Canada, are right now speaking, trying to get their identity. I see right now that there's special programs in schools. Right now, the government's trying to really give back to the First Nations. But I also see that First Nations people are still talking about systematic racism towards them, where the government is saying that, yes, we are represented, but yet we are still being, you know, mistreated. It feels like our voice is being used for part of this social justice cause, where we're being included into this Black Lives Matter movement, into this shaming the white people. And it looks like, it doesn't just look like, this is what I'm seeing too. All my neighbors, my family, everybody's talking about this, saying that, hey, it looks like right now they're after farmers. And the majority of farmers right now in Canada and the United States happen to be white, happen to be Caucasian. And they happen to own a lot of land. As well, they're talking about this in South Africa and everything, and bringing equality. But the way that they're bringing the equality, from what looks like, is that they're using these minorities as an excuse to basically take that land, the property, away from people who own the properties. Also talking about land reforms. There's even media outlets saying that people in the United States, and from what looks like in Canada, already Canada's like this, by the way, but saying that in the United States people will own nothing and that they will like it. It's kind of like along the same lines as China, where whenever you hear things about China, officials or people or whatever we do hear from China, people are always saying the Chinese people know what they want. Yet, from what it's gathered, is that right now there's a huge human rights movement in China. There's basically counter-revolutions to this revolution that has never stopped in China with this communism. And there's people trying to counter this over and over and over and over and over, speaking about it, saying, hey, listen, we got to stop this. Look at right now what's happening in China. Look, our rights are being violated. People are being taken away from their families. Minorities, this is a racist system. That they're using a majority racial structure in China, people of a specific ethnic group in China, and conquering the other ethnic groups. People are getting their husbands or their kids taken away, their wives taken away to concentration camps. People talking about agents like social workers, you know, socialist workers, moving into the house and monitoring them, you know. And then we're seeing how today with the whole pandemic, how everything is being monitored. Our politicians constantly talking about this being the new normal, the media, the news, all these things that are sponsored and paid for by people who we don't consult, we don't socialize with, people who clearly don't hear our voice. When you look at a video on YouTube, it's like, what, 100 likes to 4,000 dislikes, and then comments are disabled whenever these policies are being introduced. And in those videos, these politicians or these people are saying, the statistics is showing that all Canadians want this, and that only a very small minority opposes it, and they are people who don't want to leave the past. There are people who are bigots, and this. Clearly, it's the majority of Canadians, the majority of all the countries right now, that are disagreeing with all these policies that are coming about with this new normal, you know, in order to keep us safe. So, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm not giving any medical advice or anything like that. I have watched and worded carefully what I am saying go protect yourself. The measures, they are there in place, that they can be a bit excessive, but they're there in place, and that they're there to protect us. Never am I saying don't listen to this, don't listen to that, don't listen to that. So just to be clear, that what I am saying is about it that may seem like I'm downplaying it, is criticism, and as well as opinion, public opinion, and basically what people can see for themselves when you talk to your neighbors, your family, community. But for some reason, when it comes to what we see on social media, when it comes to that, we are not allowed to have this narrative. We are not allowed to have this opinion. We are not allowed to have a different opinion. And that's where YouTube has become a very unsafe place. And as well with what our kids are experiencing in school with the indoctrination of I'm not going to say just because of LGBTQ, but what I'm saying in general, how they're teaching the kids about politics, how to question things, how to not to question things. They are not teaching them or equipping them with what they need to actually survive as young people, young adults. Because when you leave your parents' house, when you start fending for yourself, you're pretty young. By the time you're 13, 14, there's a lot of independences there. And especially with the society that we have today, the kids are leaving unsupervised at the age of 13. They're taking a lot of responsibilities. They're still not working. They're still not paying for the bills and managing a lot of the things. But still, they are responsible for a lot of the information they receive and how they're receiving it. And the people who are educating these kids in the school, that they're saying that they're doing us a favor, with the way our jobs are, with the way we work, with the way we're taxed, we don't really have time for our kids. And they're teaching our kids. These are people who are hired specifically to teach our kids, and the kind of stuff that they're teaching our kids. And yes, at the end, to put the cherry on top with the LGBTQ+2 or whatever they want to say, is indoctrination. It is teaching a kid that anyone who thinks differently of that is an outsider, and that is literally what is being said. And when you look at the things that we fought against Hitler for, is don't tell kids that they have to think in a specific way, that there's outsiders, that anybody who's different from them are outsiders, are not good people, that they should be looked at the wrong way. And that's in a sense how the majority of Canadians feel like that. It feels like we're being persecuted by the media. It feels like we're being persecuted by the minority that collects the tax and is saying, hey, we want a different system. But guys, you have to understand how Canadians live in the first place. Look at how Canadians are taxed. Look at the land tenure system, the leasehold, everything. The United States are saying that big corporation is trying to buy the real estate, the farmland, so that they can make it a renter's nation. Look at Canada. Canada, all the ownership are leaseholds. Freeholds. Freehold tenures. They're tenures. People don't have real ownership of property in Canada. And then now with this, for a long time, and what they're saying in the United States too, but if you die, that you have to pay a tax for dying, that is like taking people's pension away. That is taking everything that you've paid in your pension, the security that you have, to the point where your children, your son or daughter, or whoever is going to inherit that cannot inherit it. And also the language saying that people shouldn't be inheriting, that people's old beliefs, hearing news articles, seeing people like Bill Gates saying that cows' burps and farts are polluting the earth, that their burps and yes, their gases are causing global warming, that talking now about tilling the earth is a global warming, to plant stuff in the ground and to disturb the earth is more carbon, that we should be carbon taxed for that. If that's happening in the United States, and Canadians don't like that, saying this could happen here, Canadians should see what they already have. And what I'm saying is that this country pushes any more on land rights, any more on ownership, any more on what we eat. Saying basically it's like we can't, like we even got HelloFresh coupons coming to our doors now. Like we can't cook and fend for ourselves. Like we can't grow our own food. Like we don't have land for that. And also the Native American excuse, talking about First Nations, saying that, you know, we're going to be giving a little bit of power back to the First Nation, recognizing them, basically to make everybody live on a reserve. And that's what First Nations people are calling out, saying we are being used right now as an excuse. You know, yeah, that we own casinos, that we own, you know, reservations and all this, and that we're bringing rights back to the people, and that we're part of other people's social justice. but it feels like we're being used as an excuse to take everybody's land away, to put everybody on reserves. Coming in my culture, the Native Americans in my history, from what I know, the tribes in my history don't exist. They don't exist. You know, they're wiped out. All that's left is me. I am the last Native American remnants of my tribes, where I come from. and to see these excuses, I don't go and I identify and say, hey, you know, let's take away all these people's land and do this so everybody can be equal like we have in the past. From what I see right now is that we're using the same racism, or what we called racism in the past, in a time where you didn't have YouTube, and a time where cultures didn't know each other, where people were literally foreign to each other, where literally two nations would meet and they've never heard of each other. They didn't have an education system saying, don't be racist, don't be like this, there's different ways, there's different benefits, look at this history. That's our history. And to be blamed for that history, and to look at what's happening with people today and how this is happening with LGBT as well, how it's all being put together, and in talking about taking away people's land rights and even more, Canadians having even less freedom over the land that they live on. They don't own the land. People don't own the houses that they're on. They're paying mortgages that are arm and a leg, and then you go sell that house, and then the inflation. How are they in reality living when they're being taxed like that? All those fees. Now the carbon tax for everything that you do. Oh man, my stove happens to be gas. It's a commodity now. Record low prices on gas. Yet you pay $10 for the gas that you use in the month. You pay another $100 for a commodity fee, for carbon tax. It's a trick. Look at Canadians. Now, because YouTube is censoring everything, and because we can't just go at a local mall and begin, you know, putting people in a huge group and preaching to them about what's happening today, no one yet has said, hey, you're not allowed to talk to people. You can still talk to people in public. You know, don't get close to them. Make signs, stand at the end of your driveway and say, hey, listen guys, look at our rights, how they're being violated. Just please, this is awareness. I'm not here yelling at you or saying, you know, I'm forcing my opinion down your throat. But look guys, we do got to protect our culture. Look at this racism that is happening today. And look, this whole racial excuse, this whole social justice is social engineering. It's basically dividing and conquering people. And look what's happening. We're all equally being screwed together. I believe that this whole social justice and things, speaking of equality and all that, it's a manipulation. And quite frankly, a person who's experienced racism, still experiences racism to this day, and now experience racism because I happen to look white, that's very unacceptable. And I feel extremely racially discriminated. And I'm telling you, all the racial struggles that I had in the past, from what I described, there was certain points as a kid where I was chased up a tree, being called a spick, a this, all sorts of bad words. And I remember being up in that tree trembling and scared while I was being called racial names. And I had some kid flung a rock because he thought it was funny. He was a good pitcher. And he hit me right in the face. And I almost died. I literally lost consciousness. I almost fell off the tree. But out of a fate of moment, I hung up to the tree. And I kind of regained my consciousness. I almost died that day over a racial attack. But what I'm saying is that's ignorance. When you ask those kids, why are you racist? Why do you hate? You're Mexican. You border jumper and this and that. Okay, well, why do you hate white people? Because you guys are greedy and you guys own everything and this and that. Okay. When are you guys going to find a norm? When are you guys going to find a middle to that? Because today, this is now happening again. What I've experienced is now happening again. But to Caucasian people, and now from what I'm hearing in school, that anybody who doesn't accept certain agendas, certain things, certain indoctrinations are outsiders. So what am I going to feel? A kid of whatever ethnicity, because they didn't accept a social policy, is going to be up that tree? Or what's happening in China where they take entire families away, where the only way people can express themselves is through heartbroken emojis? They're going to take that away too, by the way, because it's revealing too much of what people are experiencing. When I made this video, did I violate your law? Did I violate you? This video will not be shared. This video will be censored on YouTube. That's why these are last-ditch efforts from our citizens to share things, to share what is really happening. This is my version of it. I have problems with speaking. You know, growing up in a system like that, you know, it affected my ability to be able to learn properly. The brain damage I took from those things. But I'm telling you that society was not all like that. People were always saying, hey, let's not be racist, let's not be like that. And I seen the citizens themselves, despite a media still talking about radical Muslims everywhere and how bad Mexicans are, people were healing. And now today, it's the media again that is bringing racism out again. Now today, people have the racial question, who are you? Who are you? Or you're white, or you're from a different, you know what I'm saying? That's what we're experiencing today, ladies and gentlemen. That's why on these channels, I stopped making YouTube videos a long time ago about my dogs and having fun. Also installing bylaws saying that you can't own this, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't mow or do this with your lawn, or you can't have one dog, your dogs have puppies and now you're a fugitive or something like that. That, guys, look at the bylaws. Look at what you're doing to live in primetime real estate. Paying $1 million for a house, look at how you're living. Look at the fees you're living in, and look at what they're indoctrinating your kids with. What in reality are you doing moving to the cities? And yet they're saying, hey, you want to go move out to the country? You are some sort of racist. You are some sort of white nationalist that hates the world, and you want to pollute the world by having cows. You want to pollute the world by growing your own food. That's what the media is telling us right now. If you look at this Bill Gates, I don't know who this Bill Gates is. All I know is that he's the guy of Microsoft, okay? Now this guy supposedly is a world leader, okay? And the thing is that I don't use this guy's rhetoric as a reference point. I'm just saying, look, there's a face right there. Look at the kind of stuff they're saying. Just look at all your politicians right now. Look at right now with the way the pandemic is. Guys, it was 2 years ago, it was 2 weeks. Guys, they're calling this a new normal. They call this a new normal even before the 2 weeks were over 2 years ago. Guys, everything we do is being watched and monitored. Look at what Microsoft has done, taking away DVDs. You can't even play DVDs on a lot of computers nowadays. Why? Because you got to buy a program. Why? Where that program can see every time you watch that DVD, everywhere you've done it, you're like connected to the internet. Look at Kindle. Kindle. Oh, everybody can read it on Kindle. Just access it on Kindle. What happens to your books? They're being kindled away. It's not that our old society and that the old way of life is being taken away and people are unhappy with it. It's that literally we're being replaced as people as well. Well, what's coming in new is not stopping polluting the world, it's making it worse. Their genetically modified plants and trees are taking over the natural landscapes where they can't reseed, saying that we need these people to come into our crops every year and give us seeds. Saying that they're going to use machines to do this where we can't monitor and see what they're doing to the lands. We won't even be allowed. Why? Because that's federal property. This guy's farmland is now federal property. And also talk about getting sick. Geoengineering. Why do they spray that stuff in our sky? Yeah, this video is telling it all. It's an Jones video or whatever. No, it's not. This is me just saying, hey, look what's happening. Why do they spray those things called chemtrails or fake clouds in the sky? You've seen them, these planes, they leave these condensation trails that don't condensate and disappear, but you look at them closely, put a time lapse and look, and you're gonna see they're forming clouds that's blotting out the sun. It's keeping from the sun from feeding our natural landscape, from killing diseases that could possibly get into our landscape. You know, well, they're transforming our forest, our environment with this genetically modified stuff, and how they're doing stuff with their resources, how they're mining landscapes and completely disleveling them. It's showing you that they're not actually reducing global warming, that this is just an excuse. And then now saying that if I come and I put a plow onto the grass and I plant some vegetables, that I have now just caused global warming to happen because I have released carbons from the ground. When they say that cows, after the buffalo was basically eliminated off this landscape, and now is being reintroduced as like reserved animals on reservations. Look at Yellowstone, where wolves are being reintroduced. These are the animals that were there when the global warming was not happening, and yet they're saying that we got to remove all cows, all things like that, and grow them in factories and whatnot, like literally grow beef by grabbing genetics and copying their genetics and growing them in a bag. This is reality, guys. And they're saying that the way we're going to defeat global warming is by taking everybody's livestock away. It doesn't make sense. The animals are living, breathing, yes, burping, farting, and eating the grass and recycling and being part of the landscape. And supposedly they're part of the global warming. So anything that belongs to us as citizens who are not controlled and are not paying a certain tax or not under some sort of some federal surveillance, we are global warming. Anybody who is not them is a disease, is polluting. Every one of us have restrictions, yet from what I hear, these people can go anywhere. Why? Because supposedly they have a special thing going on. And we have to be afraid to even be able to put a video like this on YouTube today. Because we have to curb what we are saying. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Canada right now is completely entering a totalitarian system. It's been in a semi-totalitarian system for a long time. But now with this Justin Trudeau, who is just a public figure, a face, it doesn't matter who it is, they'll use whoever, is basically announcing, or not announcing, tricking us, manipulating us, playing the fiddle on us, saying, playing the smooth music, saying that everything's for your own good, and actually introducing the full totalitarian system, a full police state of surveillance. Look at Canadians. The country is not as big as Russia, definitely not, but the land mass is pretty similar. It's pretty sizable. The population of the entire of Canada is less than New York State, and yet people are living with such restrictions like they are living in New York City. People are being shamed. People don't own their own land. People are being put under what looks like a communist, absolutely totalitarian socialist system when they don't even make a dent in the country. How they're using the First Nation excuse, manipulating the First Nations when they're still manipulating those people, still hurting those people, and saying that we're going to use you to oppress the rest of the people, to make everybody like how you've been all these years, and some of you were going to give you rights to make you feel good. The majority of those people are also speaking out and saying, we don't want to be that excuse. We don't want this. This is BS. I've experienced these things in the school system myself. I've experienced these things in society myself. I've been on all ends of the minority spectrum to tell you what I feel. And I've also had progress in this country where my family got well. We didn't experience racism. We lived well. We see it from all ends. And we know that what's happening right now with our current systems is absolute manipulation. This is a message brought to you by a Canadian citizen. How come the government of Canada is not bringing these messages? How they always have those commercials brought to you by the government of Canada. Dun, dun, dun. This is brought to you by real Canadians. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this video is going to get censored. And the only way we can do things is, like I said, write things down, write them on paper if you have to, painstakingly, use a typewriter, stock up on pens and pencils or whatever you can, and start writing these things down. Put them in public places or put them at the end of your door, where people who walk by can see it. Put it on a sign outside your house and say, listen guys, I don't accept this. I don't want to be part of this. I don't want this racism. I don't want this indoctrination for our kids. We are being censored, and this is the only way we can share. Start sharing. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And the majority of people who are pushing these things onto the rest of the population know exactly what I'm talking about now. And you see that you have hurt the wrong people. You have targeted the wrong people in your society. You shouldn't be ashamed of yourself. Just do something different. Don't live in shame. None of us should live in shame. Everybody matters. I will say it, everybody's lives matter. Every culture, every color matters. Let's really apply this. Thank you very much. And everybody, yes, I'm going to get censored for this too. God bless you. I just got censored for saying God bless you. YouTube, supposedly 15,000 keywords at a certain point it can pick up. People are saying, can't even say ice cream. That's what a popular channel, verified channel, was saying. You can't even say ice cream because right now it's one of the keywords, supposedly. I don't know if this is an experiment, but there's a lot of things you can't say on YouTube because they'll begin to censor it, put you on a different algorithm. And they also have bot accounts, fake likes, fake interactions. I don't like this. I think this is totalitarian. Then you got an account saying, I like this. This is good. Finally. Excuse me? When you talk to everybody is saying different. And yet these news channels, these things are saying that everybody wants this, that everybody has voted for it. A unanimous vote has come out saying that this is what everybody wants. No, it's not. Absolutely not. This is what everybody does not want. And that's why we're being censored. It's simple as that. Thank you very much. Goodbye.